It gives me great pleasure to be here today and give the keynote address on this special event of the National Stakeholders Consultation Forum and the official launch of the National Action Plan on Gender and Climate Change in Nigeria. As you may be aware, climate change has become a very important issue in the world today, as leaders are looking for solutions to the impact of climate change as increases the atmospheric temperature, the sea level rise, such as increase in atmospheric temperature and sea level rise, which are all over us. It is worthy to note that level of rainfall patterns have become more and more irregular over the years. For instance, in the past, wet rainfall season would commence somewhere around April to October, while the dry season was from November to March of every year. But now, we have had rainfall even in December. Melting of the glacial ice has also led to rise in sea level, which comes with the attendant of salt and freshwater intrusion. This has resulted in changes and loss of biodiversity in the affected areas. This and other challenges made countries worldwide, including Nigeria, to adopt the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change in 1994 in a bid to address them. Nigeria went ahead to ratify the Kyoto Protocol in 2004. Countries, parties also, up to the individual nationally determined contributions. The NDCs outline what a country would do towards reducing GHG emissions. In the outline, Nigeria has also made its own commitment, all in an effort to keep the atmospheric temperature rise to well below 2 degrees. Nigeria has committed to reducing 20% of its emission unconditionally by 2020, which was just last year, and I'm glad to report to you that we have achieved that target. We have also equally committed to 45% reduction, this time around conditionally, meaning with the help of international organizations. All of that during the Paris Agreement in 2015 towards achieving the nationally determined contributions. Although climate change has great impact on all sections of the population, in all countries that are mostly reliant on natural resources for their livelihoods. However, women commonly face higher risks and greater burdens from the impact of climate change in situations of poverty, and the majority of the world's poor are women. Yet, women can play a critical role in response to climate change due to their local knowledge and leadership. For example, sustainable resource management and/or leading sustainable practices at the household and community level. At COP25, parties to the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change agreed on a 5-year enhanced Lima work program on gender and its gender action plan. The enhanced gender action plan set out objectives and activities under 5 priority areas that aim to advance knowledge of understanding of gender-responsive climate action and its coherent mainstreaming in the implementation of the UNFCCC and the work of parties, including women's full, equal, and meaningful participation in the UNFCCC process. The 5 priority areas under the LWP on gender are as follows. Priority Area A, capacity building, knowledge management, and communication. Area B, gender balance, participation, and women's leadership. Priority C, coherence. Priority D, gender-responsive implementation and means of implementation. And priority E, monitoring and reporting. The LWP set out a 5-year timeline and has 20 activities with 35 deliverables. In line with the above, and in recognition of the need for gender mainstreaming in the implementation of its NDCs, Nigeria developed its National Action Plan on Gender and Climate Change in the year 2020 and was approved by the Federal Executive Council the same year. The main goal of the action plan is to ensure that national climate change processes in Nigeria mainstream gender considerations to guarantee inclusivity and all demographics in the formulation and implementation of climate change initiatives, programs, and policies. Gender mainstreaming could play a key role in policy development that targets mitigation and adaptation of climate change by ensuring that a gender equality perspective is adopted. Thus, when it comes to decision making and implementation toward building reliant, resilient communities in the face of climate change, the full and meaningful participation of all groups becomes essential. In view of Nigeria's intention to empower and respond to the needs of women in the context of climate change, this National Action Plan on Gender and Climate Change focuses on effective strategies for integrating gender into the implementation of national climate change initiatives, including the Paris Agreement, particularly the NDC. The action plan presents milestone for ensuring that in building a climate-resilient Nigeria, the important and critical roles of women, youth, and other vulnerable groups are carried along in the implementation of relevant national policies and strategies. The priority sector covered by this action plan include agriculture, forestry and land use, food security and health, energy and transport, waste management, water and sanitation. The action plan covers the period 2020 to 2025. It should be mentioned here that although NDCs focus more on mitigation, that is, preventing or reducing climate change activities, it also provides for adaptation strategies, particularly for developing countries like Nigeria, who are the worst hit by these consequences of climate change. Adaptation to climate change is thus key to coping with the climate change effect. Adapting to climate change means taking action to prepare for and adjust to both the current and of climate change effect and the predicted future effect. Climate change adaptation is closely linked to the concept of vulnerability, which refers to the extent to which organisms can be affected by this impact of climate change. The vulnerability can be defined as consisting of three components, namely sensitivity, exposure, and adaptive capacity. Thus, in responding to the impact of the climate change, countries need to come up with appropriate adaptation measures to cope with this effect. Adaptation planning should be a key factor in national development plans and policies. The action plan would also help these vulnerable groups, including women, to better adapt to the impact of climate change with minimal loss of livelihood, ecosystem, and biodiversity. We must move away from the business as usual way of doing things, which will only lead to increase in GHG emissions and more severe climate impact. As Nigeria joins the rest of the world in towing the path of renewable energy and energy efficient sources, as well as low carbon pathways towards sustainable development and green economy, it is also important that we cater for the vulnerable groups, which include women, to ensure the continuity of life. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, I would like to appreciate Women Environmental Program for supporting this event and the development of this important document. Lastly, I also want to thank our distinguished guests and development partners for making time out to be here today. On this note, I have the singular honor and privilege to launch the National Action Plan on Gender and Climate Change in Nigeria for the good of our women and the nation at large. Finally, I encourage you all to make meaningful contributions that will lead to a successful outing in our march towards a low-carbon, cleaner, and healthier environment. Thank you for your attention.